a lot of the time I hear people saying that it can feel like almost a split second. Like that 1 minute they're feeling okay and fine, and the next minute they're back to gambling. So it's really important, I guess, for a therapist. Like, I'm often thinking about how can I help people break down that process so it doesn't feel super automatic and like they're just jumping from 0 to 100, but we can kind of actually identify those early warning signs that someone might be vulnerable to a lapse or a slip.
Hey, I'm Nick.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anastasia, and we're the hosts of the Let's Talk Gambling podcast.
And today we're going to talk about busts. So I've heard a lot when someone says they have a bust or a lapse or maybe just like a slip up with their gambling.
Yep.
Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Lots of different words for the same sort of thing.
Yes.
So if someone's had a bust, a slip, a lapse or a relapse, basically what that means is a person's been trying to not gamble or at least reduce their gambling, and then without wanting to, they've had some sort of urge, impulse, and they've gone back to gambling. We talk a little bit about the difference between a lapse and a relapse. So a lapse is usually a kind of shorter, smaller period of going back to gambling. Usually a person's able to sort of get back on track themselves without too much additional assistance. A relapse is basically where that slip up is a bit bigger. A person might need more additional support from other people or resources to get back on their path of not gambling.
Cool. Okay, so like a lapse might just be like one moment in time. Relapse might be it's happening consecutive times.
Yes.
Yeah. Or over a longer period of time.
Yeah, and maybe bigger in the sense of maybe how much money a person's spending or how long they're spending.
Okay, cool. And what's going to lead a person into experiencing a lapse or potentially a relapse?
Yeah, so it could be that there's been some sort of trigger in their life. Again, external or internal triggers are both kind of important to consider here. It might be that they've had some sort of urge to gamble and then that's led them to have this lapse or this relapse. A lot of the time I hear people saying that it can feel like almost a split second. Like that 1 minute they're feeling okay and fine, and the next minute they're back to gambling. So it's really important, I guess, for a therapist. Like, I'm often thinking about how can I help people break down that process so it doesn't feel super automatic and like they're just jumping from 0 to 100, but we can kind of actually identify those early warning signs that someone might be vulnerable to a lapse or a slip.
Right, and potentially if they do relapse, it's like how can we transition them like slowly and gradually? Like, is that the kind of approach you'd have?
It depends on what someone's goals are. So maybe if they have had a lapse or a relapse, it's looking at how we sort of gradually get back on track. For other people, it's like, right, no, I'm stopping again and I'm just going to get back on that pathway of abstinence, of not gambling, and really like throwing myself back into that.
Okay, so some people might need or want to go like full cold turkey, and others might need like a gradual, de-escalation from gambling.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
And depending on like how severe that is for someone or how much it's impacting their life, that also helps us kind of determine what might be best for them.
Could you speak to that impact a bit? Like what might be going on for a person internally if they're feeling that?
Yeah, I think if someone is experiencing harms that are really significant, they're really sort of stressed and struggling and feeling like gambling is out of control for them, that's when we'd really be looking at is maybe not gambling at all the best pathway forward for this person, and then preparing them for the fact that they will have urges, they will have that sense of at times wanting to go back to gambling because at some point it was serving some sort of function for them. It wasn't the healthiest thing, but it was happening for a reason. We also know kind of like chemically in the brain, the way dopamine works and things, there is that neurological addiction that can be formed with gambling. So it is hard to not have those urges to go back to gambling, and that's why we do see people who have a bust, a lapse, a relapse.
Right, okay. And you said like serves a function, like just so I understand by that, do you mean like so someone who's gambling, maybe that's their coping strategy for something going on internally, but it's probably a negative coping strategy. Is that fair?
Totally. Yes, it's often that gambling is a coping strategy for either something else that's going on in that person's life or some sort of emotional internal experience that they're having. And that's become a way to help them cope with it. It's not a great long-term functional healthy strategy, but it serves in that moment the purpose of helping them not feel whatever's going on. But it's certainly something we want to try and help a person break and find healthier ways of coping.
Yeah, cool. And like I was thinking as well, like for me, I've definitely experienced negative self-talk before where I've like got down on myself or thought I'm not good enough or whatever it might be. Do you feel like people who are experiencing a lapse or a relapse go through that process?
Yeah, and it's actually a huge risk factor for maybe a small lapse becoming in a bigger relapse, or for that kind of like lapse or relapse to just go on for longer, because it's common that people have that feeling of guilt, shame, self-blame, those negative thoughts that come up for them. That's really common. It's not to say that it's warranted. Like, it is really hard to go through a process of gambling recovery. But that sort of self-blame, that shame, those negative feelings create more risk for someone to then feel worse about themselves and then maybe want to throw themselves into gambling even more. So definitely in the process of therapy or working with something, we want to target that.
And the way you target it is through like positive affirmation, positive self-talk. Like, what other kind of tools and strategies might you throw in?
Yeah. So if someone's having this kind of thought or belief around, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to be able to kind of take control over my gambling, we'd look at really challenging those thoughts. Like, is that actually true? Is it a bit biased? Is it sort of in a realm of catastrophic thinking? And also, like, how helpful and useful is it for someone to think like that? Often it's not very useful and can actually be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we look at gentle ways of challenging and changing those thoughts.
Cool. So like change their internal narrative might change their behaviors and their actions from there.
Yes, okay. Absolutely. And also reinforcing, a person has usually had some sort of period of not gambling if they've had a bust or a lapse or a relapse. So if they've had that period not gambling, a bust doesn't discount all of that. Like that's still really great, and we can definitely get back on track for what those person's goals are. It doesn't mean like that it's all fallen apart.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I know within myself, like I can be my own harshest critic, and I know that so many key people in my life have the same attitude where they'll criticize themselves for the smallest mistake. So yeah, I feel like what you're speaking to makes sense to me.
Yeah. And that's where we need self-compassion, right? Like, it's part of the human experience that we don't always get things perfect and right the first time or the second or the third, and being able to be kind and loving to ourselves in the same way that we would treat a family member or a loved one or an important person in our life. Like, that's really important to be able to channel that within ourselves. And if we approach a bust or a lapse from a perspective of self-compassion rather than self-criticism, that actually gives someone the best chance for success.
Nice one. All right. Thank you for that.
Cool. Thank you. So today we've been talking about what to do if you've had a bust. So Nick, do you want to give us a bit of a summary?
Yeah, so we spoke about busts, slip-ups, and also lapses and how they can show up for a person. We distinguish between those lapses and relapses. Also had a look at some different tips that people can use to approach the situation if they find a lapse. So how can they put things in perspective? Instead of being self-critical, how can a person have some more positive self-talk and realize that it's just a moment in time? It doesn't have to define them.
And if you want to read more about this or find out more about strategies that can help you if you've had a bust, go to the Gamblers Help website where we've got lots of resources available. See you next time.